Okay, Brad, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you for coming on. I really, really appreciate it, and happy New Year.
Yeah, happy New Year to you too.
How was your festive season?
A festive season was pretty good. I was home in Memphis, which is where I grew up,
Hmm.
visiting family, and then kind of at the last minute, I ended up having to change my travel and get back here to Los Angeles to do some shows with Keon Harrell, which was a real treat.
Okay, cool. And how was so growing up in Memphis? Let's start there. How was that?
I think Memphis is one of those places. It's a real music town,
Hmm.
and it's almost hard to appreciate while you're there. While you're young, when you're young, everything seems normal,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I was at least aware that there was great music going on and great music history there, and so it was important to me, even at a young age, to kinda try and make the most out of that because music was kind of the first thing I found that I was really obsessed with enough to really sustain a level of interest in for a long time. So I kind of caught the tail end of some figures like the great guitarist Calvin Newborn was
Okay,
still around and playing, I think 3 nights a week at this place called King's Palace Cafe. Calvin Newborn, for anybody who doesn't know, was the brother of the pianist Phineas Newborn Jr.
okay.
and a fantastically underrated, highly influential guitar player who, I sort of describe Calvin as like a exact mixture of like Grant Green and BB King. It's like effortlessly weaving these kind of two related but distinct languages together, kind of right in the middle. And, Calvin, just being able to be close to and observe Calvin play as a young person was an opportunity that I don't take for granted now as
Hmm.
like an adult. The fact that I'd had that opportunity, I'm grateful.
Cool. And you mentioned like music became an obsession. How old were you when you realized that when you noticed that?
It happened 2 different times. I think the first time I was, like, 3 or 4 years old, I saw Chuck Berry on television, and I was like, "That's it. That's what
Hmm.
I'm doing." And there was an elderly German lady across the street who taught classical guitar lessons, and since she was right there, my well-meaning mother was like, "Oh, well, this is convenient. We'll just send you across to take lessons."
Hmm.
It obviously wasn't exactly what I had in mind, because I was inspired by Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
So, it didn't really last. I think I stuck with it for about 3 years, and then when I was about 11, I kind of became acquainted with Jimi Hendrix, and that
Right.
sort of reignited the inspiration, and I had a teacher that was a little bit more aligned at that time, and then it kind of just took off.
Right. Okay. And what kind of things were you working on? Oh, how old were you when you first started playing then?
I started kind of messing around with guitar and got in my first lessons when I was about 6.
Okay.
But I didn't like, I was always I had my little small guitar and I always kinda messed around, but I really got serious about it probably at about age 12, I would say.
Okay. Yeah. See, I teach quite a few kids that are around that age, sort of 6, 7, 8, and like none of them are really. They don't come in like buzzing because they heard this new record. They want to learn this song, and I'm kind of like, right. I need to make sure that you've got like the basics. I don't want to keep it super boring, so we'll just like play some pop songs. We'll play anything that you recognize or you remember, and hopefully there's enough of a seed planted that if the bug gets you, you're like, "Oh shit, I can already do all the stuff that I need to be able to do to play the music that I'm listening to now."
Yeah, I think, like, my hunch is that for just looking back on kind of my interaction with the instrument at a very young age, my sense is that the very best thing you can do for a young person at that age is anything that stimulates their curiosity about the
Yeah,
instrument.
yeah,
Because, like, something that's definitely been true for me, I mean, I can't speak for anyone else, but for me, like, discipline was always a very, very poor substitute for excitement and curiosity, you know?
yeah, yeah,
Like, I could force myself to practice X number of hours a day, but anything that I ever truly got better at, it was because I was deeply, deeply interested in it, and that provided its own motivation, you know?
yeah, yeah,
I think sometimes it's like, I guess getting to the question of motives is always interesting when, especially when talking about very young students. It's like, are they there because they are deeply curious about it, or are they there because they mentioned it one time and they've got a parent who is excited by the idea of their child getting, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think it makes a difference which of those it is.
Yes. I mean, I I I think the vast majority of the kids that I teach are definitely being sent by their parents. So then you've got it's kind of like a double-edged responsibility. You've got to get them to play, and then you're like, right, well, I'm going to now have to introduce you to music, and then finding that balance, right? Sending them home with like lists. This is what I want you to have a listen to. Come back. What do you think of it? Okay, all right. So you didn't like Van Halen. All right, try this. What do you think of that? Okay, that hit more of a sweet spot. What about this? And then you just kind of find this little groove, if you like, of stuff that they're into and they like, and you hope that they then go off and just explore. That's kind of my hope.
Right. And I sort of think that, like, that's sort of up to the I mean, it's not sort of, it's definitely just up to that individual student and where they are. And even if they're not super motivated to take it and run with it and explore right away, that may happen at a later time. Like,
Mm,
that's what happened for me, you know?
yeah.
And, like, I mean, I'm not even gonna say that when I was, like, 12 years old and kind of started taking lessons again, and I mentioned that I had a teacher that was a little bit better aligned, that doesn't necessarily mean that the teacher was, like, the greatest teacher in the world.
Mm,
It was really just very basic kind of guitar shop kind of lessons where it's like I would come in with, like, a Zeppelin or Hendrix or whatever track that I
mm,
wanted to learn. And then the teacher would figure it out and then show me, and then I would take it home. And then I would come back the next week and demonstrate that could play it now. And then
yeah.
let's do another song. But what quickly happened is that I started to say, like, well, I wonder if I could just figure this one out on my own, you know? And
Yeah.
then I would kind of like start figuring them out on my own. And then at that point, I was about 14 and had the hubris of like, well, I mean, I can just learn anything now. I guess I'm just a good guitar player. I can just
Mm,
play anything. And then I randomly happened across this Joshua Redman album that had Charlie Hayden, Billy Higgins, and Pat Metheny. It was called
mm.
Wish. And
Okay.
I had never heard anyone play guitar like that. And I'm like, oh man, this is cool. I guess I'll just learn this. And here I am about 30 years later, kind of still trying to learn that, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I remember the first time somebody like I got a guitar. I started quite late. I started about 17, and I started to get similar to you. I get lessons with a guy that I used to work with who'd been playing for a few years, and I'd say I want to learn this song. He just showed me the chords. I have to go and work it out. And after about 6 months of working with him, I asked him like, "Who's the best guitar player in the world?" And I got the typical standard like, "There's no such thing," but he played me "Passion and Warfare" by Steve Vai. That was like, what the hell is this? Because I came to music through bands like Oasis and Blur, that whole mid-90s indie scene around the UK. And I'd heard a bit of Hendrix. I think I'd heard of a couple of Van Halen tracks, but then when he played me this, I was like, it doesn't sound like a guitar. It just sounds alien. And
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, this is like peak peak guitar stuff. So that was kind of yeah, and here I am 30 years later still trying to work through some of those lines.
Right.
But yeah, it was just incredible, like finding or hearing that it's difficult to kind of put into words, but that almost that moment where you think, "Oh, okay, so it's not just GD and E. There's all this other shit that I now got to explore."
Right. Yeah, like there's that phenomenon that I mean, some people call it the Dunning-Kruger effect, or some
Mm.
people just call it Mount Stupid, you know, where
Yeah.
like your confidence is low at first and then low at the end, and it's your confidence is highest when you know a little bit, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's a kind of a necessary part of the journey of, you know, hanging with this instrument for a lifetime, is that you reach that point where every door you open leads to another room full of doors, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
And reckoning with that and kind of just accepting that that's the reality of it, and it's actually a fortunate reality. It's impossible to get like, I get bored easily,
Mm.
and I haven't managed to get bored with guitar yet, and after decades, you know, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
why.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking of this afternoon. I was recording a little podcast, like a Happy New Year thing, and I don't know if you're the same. I go through these phases where I'll be hardcore listening to like one specific genre. Like I'll just be listening to country. That's it. Like I'm running through Albert Lee, Brad Paisley, Jerry Donahue, and all this stuff. And then just switches, and then I'm like Miles Davis. And then all the country stuff I've been doing is gone. Now I'm listening to Miles Davis and Wes Montgomery, and then I'll switch from that to Chet Atkins, and it's like I'm like a rabbit. I don't know what the fuck to do with myself, and I try and just digest as much of that music I can. Like you said earlier, like you're just hungry to learn as much as you can of whatever you're interested at the time.
And I think that I'm like that too, and all of my favorite musicians are also that way in
Yeah.
my observation, like, a lot of times, even if you have the opportunity to meet somebody who's very, very strongly associated with a particular style,
Hmm.
it's very often the case that their listening is extremely broad,
Yeah.
things that are not that a layperson would not necessarily associate with this artist, like they're
Hmm.
actually deeply into, because it's just like once you kind of become curious about music like that, you become attracted to that greatness,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it becomes less important. A lot of times genre is really just shorthand for who's the intended audience, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think once we become deep enough practitioners of this art, we sort of transcend intended audience, and we just like we start to be able to see the depth of the work no matter what the window dressing is around it. We start to be able to see the depth,
Yeah. Yeah.
and once your relationship with the work is like that, then there really almost is no such thing as genre to you. You know what I mean? I mean, at least
Yeah.
that's how
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. No, like when I meet new people and they say, "What do you do?" and I say, "I'm a musician," they say, "Oh, are you in a band?" It's like, well, yeah, I'm in a few. I do this, and I tell them what I do. And they're like, all right, so what kind of music do you play? I was like, well, I kind of play whatever. What needs to be played. If I'm being paid to do a gig, then I'll play that. Um, and they're like, it's kind of, I guess it's kind of strange for them to get their head around, because I guess what they're expecting me to say is, oh, I'm a metal guitar player or I'm a jazz guitarist. But I say, well, no, I listen to everything. I dip into as much stuff as I can, and if I get a gig where I've got to learn a jazz standard, then I've got to learn that jazz standard. And I say it's a bit like being a handyman. They're like, if you turn up, you're like, right, can you fix the plumbing? Like, yeah, I can do that. Also, the ceiling's falling in. Yeah, I can fix that as well. Okay, the floor's a bit. Yeah, I can do that as well. The carpet. Yeah. So you've got to, depending on what kind of player you are, you've got to kind of have your fingers in as many different pies as possible.
One of my favorite all-time favorite guitar players is the like Memphis session player Reggie Young.
Okay.
And Reggie Young, obviously, like some of his first work was with Willie Mitchell on the High Records label. So all this Willie, like Soul Serenade, all this Willie Mitchell, this instrumental Memphis stuff.
Yeah.
And then when Chips Moman opened his studio in, I can't remember when, late 60s, he started playing on all these Wilson Pickett records, Aretha Franklin
Mm,
records, Bobby Womack records, just like fantastic. And then American Studios, which was Chips Moman's studio, closed in, I think it was 72 or 73. And then Reggie Young moved to Nashville, which I guess
mm,
was just the next closest place to Memphis. It's the 3 hours drive away where they're making records.
mm.
And then pretty much just played on country records for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Amazing work on George Strait records, Reba McEntire. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Like
mm.
A-list country session player kind of for the rest of his life. And to me, he sounds like Reggie Young. I randomly was somewhere and I heard a Conway Twitty song from, I think, the late 70s the other day.
Yeah.
And I heard this Telecaster and it's straight country, but I could tell it was Reggie Young just because his accompaniment sensibility,
Yeah.
like his ability to play in between the vocal phrases in a certain way and kind of to respond to both the rhythm section and the vocal in this way that like created a aesthetic signature for the tune, but also kind of supported everything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that sounds like Reggie. And I looked it up, and of course it was. And it's just, I mean, but that was like that quality of his transcended whether he was playing on Bobby Womack records
Mm.
or Conway Twitty records,
Yeah.
And I love that. I mean, I aspire to be that way. Like
Yeah.
that's life goals for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like getting the call because people know that you can handle whatever may be thrown at you.
Yeah. And also crucially, the thing that I really find admirable about it is that like it wasn't it wasn't like cosplay, you know? Like, he
Mm.
sounded like himself. He was playing in a manner that was to give the record what it needed,
Yeah.
but also he sounded like himself authentically, like it was an actual true it wasn't just like wearing the costume of a country guitar
Yeah, yeah,
player
yeah,
or
yeah.
wearing a costume of somebody who would play with Bobby Womack. It was like
Mm.
authentically Reggie Young, but a little bit different to suit the context, but very much him. And
Yeah.
I aspire to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal. I'd say that's the goal that most people that do this for a
Yeah.
living kind of aspire to be. So what about things like practicing and getting better? Like, let's talk about practicing. Do you practice? Do you call it practice?
Yes. Well, I try to put my hands on a guitar for at least an hour a day,
Mm.
And I've learned to but for many years it became almost an obsession where I would do it and I don't think it was always doing me a lot of good because I was just like I had almost like a compulsion like I've got to at least deal with the guitar for a little while today. And I'm not sure that was always the most productive. Here lately, I've been able to give myself a little more grace. I still don't like to go more than a day or two
Yeah.
without touching it. But if it's like a holiday and I've got stuff going on, I'm like, you know what? The guitar will be there tomorrow. But I do
Mm.
like to lay my hands on the guitar every day.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm still learning how to practice,
Okay.
I think I developed a lot of bad habits technically as a result of starting very young,
Yeah.
and I was always following my curiosity, and my curiosity was never technique. My curiosity was always songs,
Mhm.
sounds, parts, personality.
Yeah.
Those are the things that always drew me in. So I feel like in many ways, there's still a lot that I'm trying. Pretty much all I practice now is technique, honestly,
Right.
because that's where my ability lags the most, particularly right-hand technique. I'm a left-handed person who
Yeah.
plays right-handed
Right.
guitars.
Okay. All right.
So I'm trying to deal with right-hand technique always. I mean, to the point that like I even for a couple of years joined up, what's that guy's name? Troy Grady. His
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
like, I, like, actually joined his thing and was, like, dealing with his courses a little bit, kinda trying to get my right hand a little bit more together. It really
Yeah.
taught me a lot.
Yeah.
But something that I'm figuring out that's working better for me than anything else ever has is extremely small, extremely well-defined goals.
Yeah.
It's not like, if I say, like, I wanna be able to blaze rhythm changes at 350 BPM, that's
Yeah.
not specific enough,
Right.
right?
Okay.
Like I want to be able to play 3 octaves of an F major scale in 16th notes at 140 BPM, up and down, 10 times in a row with
Yeah.
no mistakes. Like that kind of specific. That
Okay.
really helps me.
And
And
is that
like
what?
I can deal with that task over a period of days, you
Yeah.
know?
Okay. And that tempo, so it was 16ths at 160.
I
Is
can't
that what you
remember what
said?
I said.
All right.
140 maybe. It's a
Oh,
hypothetical,
right, I
but
see. Okay, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I remember when I started having lessons with a guy who was super technical, and he would give me stuff like this, and I'd never practiced like this. It was always it's like you're not focused enough. Like your left hand's okay, your right hand we really need to work on, and but he would literally just have me running those kinds of exercises. And I'd sit in the lesson, and they're an hour long lesson. And for 50 minutes, I would just be running a 2 octave G major scale. And I'm like, geez, are we actually going to? He's like, this is what we're doing. This is your lesson. It's like, there is nothing else. This is what you need to work on. So this is what we do. Like, he's like, why don't you? I was like, because I'd never had lessons like that. All of my lessons were structured around repertoire and learning songs. It was never about technique. He's like, and I remember when I asked him, "Could we learn a song?" He's like, "No." He's like, "You're." He's like, "You're a grown up. Go and learn the song on your own. You need to work. You need to get your legato up to sevens at 100 BPM because you're struggling."
See, but that I think it's very interesting to me because I think I would have responded in the exact same way as you did if I had had a
Mm,
teacher try and impress that upon me.
mm,
I had to get to a point where I felt the need myself, you
yeah,
know? Like, I'm like, okay, I'm on this gig. I couldn't get my ideas out in a fluid enough way.
mm,
and I found it frustrating and it pissed me off. And
Yeah.
like I came home feeling like shit about how I played. Like, and what do I have to do so that I
Mm.
don't have to feel that way again?
Yeah.
And then it's like, maybe it's time for me to deal with some technique, So it's like you pick one very well-defined goal
Mm.
and then like you deal with it for a while and then maybe you choose a different goal or whatever after that. But like that's been what's been most fruitful for me lately.
Yeah.
That and also I'll say too, there are a lot of ways to improve our musicianship and kind of practice, quote unquote, without an instrument in our hands. And
Mm.
sometimes that's the most fruitful or productive practice.
Yeah.
Like two things I like to do. Number one, I am always working on ear training in the sense of like if I'm just listening to the radio or if I've got like a streaming service on and it's just auto playing stuff,
Mm.
especially if it's music I've never heard, I'm identifying chord function in my head the entire time I'm listening to it.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, 1, 5, 6, 4, and then it's like, okay, I think that's flat 7, and it's like
Yeah.
I'm kind of identifying chord function all the time. And what that does for me is that I've been doing a lot of session work this year. And one project I was working on with an artist, it was like a pretty well-known artist who does a lot of like musical theater here in the States. And there was like an album of covers. And then, there was another project I was working on where there were demos. And we actually had a band in the studio. And it's like, okay, we're going to play this song down in the control room once, make
Mm.
your chart. We'll play it a second time if we need to or whatever. And you're just like and then we go in and we cut it, right? So like all the years of identifying chord function as I listen to music in my head allowed me to like just like write a chart the first time through hearing it and keep the session moving fast.
Yeah.
And like so that's one way. Another thing that I find is really really good as far as practicing away from the instrument is literally imagine yourself playing. It sounds so basic, but
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
seek how clear can your mental picture be of the look, the feel, and the sound of playing a particular thing when you don't have your instrument in your hand. Like if I imagine myself playing an F major scale 3 octaves, like can I hear every note as I imagine it? Can I picture where every note is on the fretboard, up and then down? Can I imagine like the feeling of what my right hand is doing, whether it's an upstroke or a downstroke on that particular note? Am I sweeping across 2 strings here? Am I, and like
Mm.
just slowly mentally practicing. Sometimes for me, weirdly, I feel like if I'm sitting on a plane or something and I'm just like working on something in my imagination, it actually ingrains it better than if I have an instrument in my hand. It's weirdly like more durable practice somehow.
Yeah. No, I've read studies and stuff like that mental practice is as beneficial as the physical practice. And, and it's something that like if we go on holiday with the kids, like, and I'm, if we're on an airplane, I don't take a guitar with me. It usually takes about a day, day and a half, and then I'm playing guitar in my head. Like I'm like, right, let's just do a quick slow blues 6/8 thing in A. We'll just drive around those chords. Okay, cool. Right, and okay, let's put a minor 11 in there because I like the sound of that. And then when you get home, you start playing. It's like, does it sound the same?
Mhm.
Can I get it to sound the same? Am I hearing it properly in my head?
Where I've had my biggest revelations with that type of, I guess, mental practicing is, and this is a real trip because I like, just for some background, like something that I feel like I'm learning deeper every day is that every issue with technique, for me at least, is fundamentally an issue with tension. You
Mm,
know, like something's not relaxed, something's not loose, something is awkward, something is tense.
yeah.
And it's extremely revealing to me when I'm like mentally practicing something. I don't have an instrument in my hand. My body is not engaged at all. And when I'm imagining playing, I still perceive the tension. Like I'm
Okay.
imagining it with the tension. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is very interesting because this is a sign that like a lot of what's going on here that's manifesting physically is actually mental.
Yeah.
Like I've played this with a tense body so many times for so many years that like that's all I literally can't imagine
Mm.
being relaxed.
Yeah.
So, like, the first step is like, let me see, can I try and imagine myself playing this thing and imagine it feeling effortless? Imagine like the feeling of my hand and arm and wrist and shoulder being loose. Imagine the feeling of, because like I hold tension in weird places when I play. And it's like
Okay.
I've kind of made a study of it because I really do feel like it holds my technique back. I get tension in the soles of my feet. I get tension in the backs
So
of
do
my
I.
knees.
I sometimes stand on tiptoes when I play,
Yeah,
and I'm like, and then I caught myself doing it. I was like, why the fuck am I on my tiptoes? Just
yeah, and it's all just like energy that's being it's like you've got like our body creates obviously kinetic energy, motion.
mm,
We have the ability to propel our body to move. And when we're directing that energy and that tension to weird places like the
mm,
soles of our feet, it's like we've got a garden hose with a bunch of holes in it. It's like we're just like we can't efficiently use our bodies to like maximize what we're trying to do on the instrument because we've got all these energy leaks. I've got,
yeah, yeah,
tension in the soles of my feet. I've got tension behind my knees. My right shoulder will do this sometimes if there's
yeah,
a
yeah,
challenging or fast passage, and, like,
yeah,
all of that is just wasted energy,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
So, to me, that's a big, I guess, kind of process that is ongoing for me is trying to relax away. Like,
yeah,
instead of
yeah,
trying harder, trying easier, you know?
yeah, yeah. So you ever hold your breath? You ever catch yourself holding your breath?
Yeah, I
No,
do.
I had a teacher point it out to me. Say, "You're holding your breath." I'm like, "Am I?" He's like, "Yeah, I can see you're getting to this particular passage, and you're like,
Yeah,
you got to let that shit out because as soon as you do that, you then start. It doesn't take long, and then you're tense, like
yeah.
everywhere from your chest down to your arms, your wrists, your legs, your knees, your toes, everything. You just got to sit back." And he said, "Fuck it up. Just make a mistake, but just fuck it up. Relax. Don't tense it up."
And also you can hear that tension. That tension
Mm,
has a sound.
mm,
Like I don't wanna sound like, I don't know, supernatural or whatever, but it's like, have you ever been to a party and you meet someone and you can tell they're trying too hard to make everyone like them, and it's a little
yeah,
off-putting, you
yeah.
know? It's
I
like,
generally don't go to parties, but yeah, I know what you
yeah,
mean.
if in any social interaction, somebody's just, like, doing a little too much,
Yeah,
like, even if they're not saying anything wrong or acting anything that would look weird on paper, like, the vibes are off, you
yeah,
know? And I feel like when anytime I've ever, like, been a part of a recording, whether I'm, like, recording an overdub by myself or been in a studio working with or for an artist, and I hear it and I'm disappointed on playback, what it always is that I was tense when I played it and the vibes are off.
yeah.
Like, it's not assured, it's not relaxed. It's if you ever listen to, like, Levon Helm's drumming with the band,
Mm,
that's what I want to sound like always. Just super assured, relaxed, just like confident is the wrong word. It's just secure. There's like a security. It's like, here's who I am. Here's where I put the beat. Shit might be a little raggedy, but it's gonna be funky, you know?
yeah, yeah,
And whenever I'm disappointed that I'm falling short of that ideal, it's always because I had tension in my body when I was playing. It
yeah.
manifests not only in vibe, but also in time.
Mm,
Like, you'll tend to rush or I'll tend to drag when I'm tense because I'm I'm trying to make every note perfect, and it makes the time get heavy.
yeah, yeah,
And some
yeah,
people are trying to rush through the thing that they're insecure about, and it makes the time take off. And so, like, good time a lot of time comes from just relaxation, and like
yeah,
good technique comes from relaxation. I really feel, at least that's what I'm working toward.
yeah. I watched a reel the other day. It was a bass player, like just giving some time lessons, and he said, "Try this. Try 4 clicks. Try and play on the click. Try and play ahead of the click, and then try and play behind the click, and be really, really disciplined with it." And so, like rushing ahead of the click, no problem. On the click, no problem. Behind the click, I was struggling and it made me anxious. Like it was like I had to wait ever so slightly, and then I was tense. I was like, no, I got to lean back a little bit. Actually physically start to lean back. And Yeah, I found that slightly difficult. So I'm now like, right, I now need to find as many behind the beat, lazy grooves that I can find and just try and lock in with that. But
Mhm.
yeah, it was eye opening.
Click stuff is a discussion in and of itself
Mm,
because I really think there's so much depth to just learning to play with a metronome or with a click. And I think, like, there are levels to, like, so many things, there are levels to it, right? It's like level 1 is like, can you follow the click?
yeah.
Level infinity to me is, and this is gonna sound weird, but can you make the click follow you? You
Okay.
know, like, instead of playing in a way that's reactive to the click, can the click be there and you're so confident in your time that if you feel it start to drift, you don't panic and jump back onto the click. You ease your way back in, you know,
Mm,
in a way where you're so confident, the feeling is almost like, I'm going to make this click get with me, you know?
yeah.
And like the feeling of that is, it's a different phenomenon. I can't remember. It might have been, I can't remember, but I heard a session drummer, like a 1980s era session drummer. It might have been Porcaro
Okay.
talking about that, you know, that
Mm,
phenomenon of like you can bury the click, but then like there's another art form to like drifting in and out of the click in a way that sounds and feels natural
yeah.
instead of because at some point, at least if you're recording, that click is going to go away, you
Yeah.
know, and it's something that I'm always cognizant of doing remote session work where there's an entire track. I'm overdubbing my part to the track and it's probably at a tempo, or maybe there's a tempo map. Maybe there's a printed click that they've sent with the session. I can make the shit feel great with the click on because I'm accompanying the click. But
Mm,
what I've got to remember is what does it sound like when the click is off?
yeah.
Because, like, in reality, it should sound like I'm playing with the band, not like
Yeah.
I'm playing with the click. And
Yeah.
sometimes the band's relationship to the click will be different from mine. So you pull that click track out, what does it feel like now? You
Yeah.
know? And like I've burned myself that way before where like I've, worked through a track, got everything feeling great, and then turn the click off and I'm like, I gotta start over. It's
Yeah.
not funky. It doesn't,
It's
you know what I mean?
yeah,
It's like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
click is a whole thing.
Yeah. I mean,
As far as practicing with the click, I think there are 2 things that I think are great. Number 1 is just reducing the frequency of the click
yeah.
and keeping the time yourself
Mhm.
instead of you know what I mean? Like, put the click on beat 1 every 4 bars and
Right. Yeah,
play.
yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing is something that I actually heard Kurt Rosenwinkel describe one time, which I think is brilliant, which is think that if I remember right, the terms he casted in was like the metronome's across the room and I'm too lazy to go change it. So if I want to practice at a different tempo, now the metronome is on triplets and I'm playing in 4, but the metronome is on quarter note or half note triplets.
Okay.
Or like maybe now the metronome is clicking sevens and I'm playing in 4/4 over the 7. You know, like
Okay.
what
Yeah.
like so all these different relationships, you can actually get a lot of different tempos out of one metronome setting if you are just changing the way you conceptualize what the clip is, you know?
Yeah.
I thought so.
I know I was sat in the kitchen the other day and it's in my parents' kitchen and they've got an analog clock which ticks. And it's ticking at 60 BPM. And I was just sitting there listening to it and that click was the 2 and the 4. And I was just sitting there going 1, 2, 3, 4. And I was doing doing stuff
Mhm.
around the kitchen and I just had this click in my head. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just weird. When you hear like this repeated sound, it all of a sudden it just becomes a metronome or it becomes a backbeat or it becomes the front beat.
Yeah.
It's
Turn
strange.
signals in cars is another one, you know, whether your turn
Yeah.
signal has a triplet or a 16th.
It's weird. And like if you try and explain it to people who are non-musicians, they're just, what the hell are you talking about? But the other thing I want to talk about is where did you learn music? I mean, obviously you said you had lessons from when you were a kid, when you were 6, then you were 12. Did you study at college? Did you do anything at high school or university?
Yeah, so I think what has ended up being my most important education was my dad grew up in a big family and there were 6 kids and all of their records somehow ended up at my parents' house. So
Yeah.
when I was about 5 or 6, I learned how to use a record player and there were CDs already. I'm not that old, but in my
Right.
house, we had a record player, and so
Yeah,
that's
I
what
had
I
one. We had
learned.
one too. Yeah.
Yeah, and all the records were I think the oldest one was, like, Duke Ellington Mood Indigo on a
Right.
7-inch, and then all the way up to, like, Mississippi Queen by Mountain, which was 1970. So that
Right.
was my spectrum. A lot of Motown records,
Mm-hmm.
some Beatles, some Beach Boys. So a lot of different things, and I listened to those records and just became obsessed with them and did nothing. I didn't go outside and play. I just
Mm.
listened to records. And in hindsight, that was my real education.
Yeah.
But I did have a great high school band director. I wasn't in the marching band or concert band or anything like that, but I was in the jazz band at my high school. And Leroy Snell was our band director, and his I think it was his brother Lester Snell was a session keyboardist at Stax.
Okay.
Just a great musical influence,
Mm.
kind of really got a lot of fundamentals. And then I did go to University of North Texas for an undergraduate, which is where I met, like, all the I mean, I think I saw where you had Bob Lanzetti on, like
No, I've not had
is
him
that
on.
right?
No.
No, maybe not.
But
Anyway,
I had Chapman Welsh. I don't know if you know him.
say again?
I had Chapman Welsh. I don't know if you know him.
Chapman Welch.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Chapman.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Chapman was also at the University of North Texas, believe it or
Right.
not, but
Okay.
Bob Lanzetti, all the Snarky Puppy people. Snarky Puppy was formed actually in my living room, weirdly. Mike Leake lived in the garage apartment behind the
Nice.
house I was renting.
Yeah.
And, they had their earliest rehearsals. I had, like, a front room where I had a drum kit, and
Yeah.
I had a roommate that had a Rhodes, so they did, their kind of first rehearsals in my house.
Wicked. That's amazing.
Yeah, so I did that, and then after that, I took a year just playing gigs around Dallas, saving up a little money, and then I got a master's degree at William Patterson University, which was essentially just my excuse to move to the New York City area.
Yeah.
I got a little graduate assistantship where I could make a little money and go to school and kind of go to school for free. And at that time, the director of jazz studies was Mulgrew Miller,
Mm-hmm.
who was obviously a huge hero of mine, and Harold Mayburn Jr., another huge hero who my lessons with him were life changing because all we did was play tunes. But just being around Harold and soaking up I mean, like, it's an understatement to say he has a connection with the history, like, he is the history. Most of the video footage that exists of Wes Montgomery, that's Harold on piano.
Yeah.
It's, like, played with Miles and, my favorite Lee Morgan records that I loved as a teenager, like, that's Harold. So
Yeah.
but the biggest revelation to me to my time with Harold was we would play tunes and no two choruses had the same harmony.
Okay.
And like a lot of other young people who had kind of gotten into jazz through jazz education, like I had this idea that there were the changes to the
Mm.
song, right? But Harold's concept of harmony was so much more open and so much more fluid. And like basically there are a lot of different ways that you can harmonize this melody and a lot
Mm.
of different things that can evoke similar harmonic function. It's like what might be a dominant 7, a 5/7 sharp 9 on one chorus might be minor 4 on the next chorus, but both
Okay.
of them pull to tonic in a colorful way,
Yeah.
so they both and maybe they both work with the same melody note, so like there it's all fair game. And so that's kind of where I learned that it's like, oh, you're not playing the changes. You're not
Yeah.
just plugging in scales over chords. Like you've actually got to listen to the harmony that's going on around you and try and improvise lines that play well with
Mm.
that harmony.
Yeah.
So that was most of my formal education, was
Okay. I mean, a free education in the United States is hard to come by, isn't it?
it is hard to come by, yeah. I mean, and it's only free in the sense that I didn't have to go into debt for it.
Right. Okay.
I was working at the college to kind of help offset it, but
Yeah. So the other thing I always like to ask people is, do you think there's anything that is either missing or lacking in education today, particularly when you scrolling around on social media? Do you think no one's talking about this thing that needs to be discussed more?
wow. If I had time to think about it, I could probably give you an entire list, you
Yeah.
know?
Okay.
And it's not because anyone is not well-meaning or because there's any shortcoming of any of the educators, but
Mm,
I think there are certain things that can be learned but are very difficult to teach, you know?
yeah.
And there are things that we can demonstrate, but I think just speaking about, things that you would learn on social media, just to take that as one example, there are a lot of things that don't really translate very well through that medium as
Mm,
far as sustaining interest or sparking curiosity.
mm,
I think the most important skill for me as like a professional, as a session player, like the thing that is most important for me getting called back is almost impossible to demonstrate on social media. And that is creating a good ensemble sound with other musicians. Like
yeah,
balancing and blending your not only your level, but your timbre, your tone, your register, like developing the instincts to okay, I've got somebody playing a Wurlitzer electric piano kind of in this middle low register. Like, what happens if I kick on this octave fuzz so that I'm doing something that doesn't just disappear into this whirly, you know?
yeah,
Or it's like, okay, this I've got somebody playing Rhodes in a really high register for that instrument where I've got a lot of this kind of upper mid range. What if I flick to my bridge pickup on a Telecaster and play single notes at the very bottom of my register,
yeah, yeah,
like these little instincts and these little insights that you develop for it's like, okay, what's missing? How do I
yeah,
add what's missing?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's like not like the easy part is figuring out what's going on and what the other people are playing. Like, I don't want to play what they're playing. I want to play what they're not playing. I want to find what's missing.
yeah.
And, like, how do you teach that, How do you make a social media video about that
You
gets
can't.
somebody's
No.
interest within the first 3 seconds, and you know what I mean? It's like because it's not a dazzling thing. It's actually very fulfilling and gratifying and deep and exciting work for me, but
Mm,
it's hard for that excitement. From the outside, it looks very mundane. It looks like the kind of thing that's not hard, you know? But actually, for me, that, like, kind of musicianship stuff is the most elusive, you know?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think most lessons and most things that I think are important come down to listening to as much music as you can and playing with as many people as you possibly can. And I think if you combine those two things, I've just spent all morning, like, because it's the start of the new year, so it's the start of the school term. So I'm emailing all the parents. I'm saying, look, this is the timetable for the kids, and I write a report of what they did on the term before. I grow tired of emailing them saying, look, Dave's done really well. You know, he's got through his open chords. He can make change between them, but he's not coming into lessons saying, I listened to this song and I fucking love it. Like he needs to be listening to music. Does he have an account? Does he have a YouTube thing? Does he have Spotify? Does he have Apple Music, Alexa, all that stuff? Like he needs to be listening to more music. Do you play music in the house? Do you have a radio? Turn the radio on and just leave it on. Their parents are like scratching their heads. They're like, yes, I'll get him to listen to more music. And I'm still not seeing this, like, it's difficult to say improvement, but I'm not seeing kids coming in saying, "Oh yeah, no, I'm listening to that. I listened to that. I've heard that. We're going to a concert." That doesn't seem to happen. It happens less and less.
And that's so important. I think I had a moment yesterday, which this it thrills me that I still have these moments where, um, I randomly heard the song "Rio" by Duran Duran.
Oh yeah.
And there's the guitar in that song is doing something that on paper to me is insane, but
Mm,
it works so well in the track. And that is in the chorus, there are these kind of middle register distorted lines that sustain while the vocal's going on, And
mm,
it's like a distorted electric guitar kind of playing in its middle register has all that 1K, 2K stuff that like where the vocal wants to live. And I'm like,
yeah,
so this guitar is like right where, like in terms of frequency,
yeah, yeah,
spectrum,
yeah,
right where the vocal wants to be. Like, how is this good accompanying? But it works so incredibly well. And what I realized is the particular type of distortion sound, the particular part It was very sustained, very legato. It was serving the exact same function as like unison violins would have served on a Nat Cole record,
Right.
where it's just this long, sustained, flowing, kind of bright in timbre, stringy sound, but it was being accomplished with a distorted electric guitar. And I've never, that's a part that I never would have come up with because it would have felt wrong to me.
Hmm.
But now it's something that I might try. And it's
Yeah.
like, if we're not listening, like you said, if a student isn't actually like engaging with the body of work that's out there and so
Yeah.
easily
I know.
accessible now,
It
by the
blows
way.
my mind.
Like, I'll tell you a story about, like, when I first started playing, it was the 90s,
Mm.
and there was a website called cdnow.com, which was an online, like, compact disc retailer, and you could download the real audio player and listen to the first 30 seconds of the first 5 tracks of most of the CDs they had in stock. And I would just obsessively go through and listen in extremely low quality to 30 seconds at a time. It's like I would read about the existence of Thelonious Monk or
Yeah.
Sun Ra. And what I read made me so curious. I'm like, I can't afford to actually buy these records, but like, I just have to hear a little bit of it. So I
Hmm.
would go and I would wait, on a dial up connection, however long it
Yeah.
took to download like 30 seconds in super low quality. Like, so now I'm really so grateful that young people have these resources that we didn't have. Like,
Yeah.
you can go on, I remember this little piece of technology that you could order out of the back of Guitar Player magazine called the Amazing Slowdowner that you could
Yes. Yeah.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
record and you could actually slow down. Now you can just do that within YouTube, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I know. And I think it's lost because no, yeah. I just, like I've said, I think on nearly every single episode, like music is free and nobody's listening to it.
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
really, really sad. Like, but there are shining parts of my students. There's a kid that came in the other day just before Christmas and he brought in Everybody Wants to Rule the World, Tears for Fears. And I was like, oh, I've forgotten what a great fucking song that is and what a great fucking album that is. And I got so excited that he brought it in. I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
what? Okay, all right, let's go through the whole song. Brilliant. It's just, that's like, it's amazing when it does happen, but I wish it happened more frequently.
I think part of that might be that like music's place in the popular consciousness and popular culture has changed so much in the past quarter century.
Yeah.
I feel like when I was a teenager, in my early 20s, even really a teenager, like I would hear someone's music and I would become interested in who that person was because I had
Mm,
heard their music.
yeah.
It's like you hear Hole and it's like, wow, who is Courtney Love? Well, who
Yeah.
makes music that sounds like this? What is this?
Yeah.
And now I feel like so often it works in reverse, where due to the kind of prevalence of social media in everyone's life, we learn who the person is first. And if they're interesting enough to us as a person, then we might want to hear their music.
Yeah.
And
It's
it's,
very strange.
yeah,
Yeah, but
it's, just,
I mean, I love the fact that I've got the access to a century's worth of music at the press of a button. So I'm exploiting it for everything that it's worth, and
yeah,
yeah, trying to ingest as much music as I can. I think I'm only getting hungrier as I get older.
yeah, same. And
Yeah.
I'm also finding myself going further and further back in time,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. I know.
what I'm
Like,
curious about.
so no, like I said, Oasis were the band that really got me into music. But I would say that bands like Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Soundgarden are the bands that really turned me on to music. But now when I listen to it, I can appreciate it and I still love it, but it doesn't do the same thing for me. But
Mhm.
now when I listen to like the Joe Pass and Ella Fitzgerald album, like I listen to that, I'm like, son of a bitch, man.
Yeah.
Like that's now hitting all the right spots that Pearl Jam were hitting when I was 19.
Very like side note on that album or those albums, because I think they did 3
And
or
3 or 4,
2.
yeah.
Yeah. But it's very late career Ella Fitzgerald, and her
Mm,
instrument is so different, you
yeah.
know? Her instrument, she's almost a baritone,
Yeah.
And there's on one of those records, they do A Foggy Day,
Okay.
and she's so low, but, like, what she does with her instrument like she was singing, she was using the instrument she had, not the instrument she used to have, in a
Yes, yeah.
way that, like, I really love and really to like, as I get old, if I ever reach an age where maybe, like, my facility isn't what it once was or
Mm,
whatever, like, I hope to do that. I hope
yeah.
to, like, it's like sometimes great athletes, like basketball players,
Mm,
they'll be a different player in their late career because they're not as athletic anymore, so they have to be more cerebral.
yes.
And, like, Ella in her late career didn't have that, like, that clarion purity of tone that she had in her earlier career. She didn't have that upper register that she had, but
Mm,
she had all that seasoning and all that wisdom,
mm.
and, like, that comes through on those records, and I'm so enamored of that. I think Robert Plant kind of has been on a similar journey in his
Yes, yeah, 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 yeah. Like some of the stuff he did with Alison Krauss is just
yeah,
blinding.
fantastic.
I got to see them when they did their first album. That was just I like just thinking about it now. It's just something else. It was one of those like glad that I'm here. Like I think I had to
Yeah.
cancel a gig to go to it, and I'm so glad I did. Yeah. So if you had to do it all again, would you do anything different?
Ooh, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
There are things that I feel like I would have had a different path. I might have had an easier path if some other things had been in place.
Mm-hmm.
I just the background I grew up, I feel like I'll put it this way. If there's one thing that I think is regrettable about the way kind of the process of learning music and like progressing toward a music career now,
Mm.
I think there's so much that's good. But the one thing that I think is a little bit regrettable is that it's becoming a little bit more like competitive high school athletics are here in the United States,
Right. Yeah.
where like it's so important to identify a talent by 11 or 12 years old
Mm-hmm.
and then set them on the right course, put them with the right teachers, put them in the right programs, do
Mm-hmm.
the right networking. It's like young athletes here, like if a young basketball player isn't on the right like path from a very
Mm.
early age, things get exponentially harder for them to ever make it to the top levels of the
Yeah.
profession. It's like something that's a little more Eurocentric, Formula One. If you're
Mm.
not in karting
I say,
by
oh, let's see.
age,
See, I race karts as well.
do you?
Yeah.
So if you're not in karting by age 6, then
Yeah.
your chances of ever becoming a Formula One driver drop to like 0, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, I actually heard somebody, I think it was Max Verstappen, said that he'd say that sim racing is more important than karting now. He said that
Really?
sim racing is so, I can't remember his exact words, but he said the way you drive a kart and the way you drive an F1 car are completely different. Like both are good. He said because karts don't have the rear axle is locked, you're sliding a lot. He said, but in Formula One cars and in racing, that's the last thing you want to do. Like
Mm.
karting is good to get your racecraft up, but he said if you had to pick one, sim racing. But
So
I get what you're saying. Yeah,
let's say it's
absolutely.
2009. If you
Yeah.
weren't in karting and I think music, I'm starting to see it become more and more that way,
Yeah.
where it's like either you've got like the people who kind of reach the top levels are far more likely to have very involved parents who are like super focused there and getting them in right with the right teachers at an
Hmm.
early age. They're more likely to be steered into the better like collegiate music programs or conservatories. And like, I think that's a little bit regrettable because there are so many more valid stories that can be told
Yeah.
besides just that.
Yeah.
Mine is very non-traditional. You know, I didn't come from a musical family. I didn't have a lot of encouragement from my family to pursue this path. They
Yeah.
weren't super discouraging, but they weren't like my sisters were athletes and they got all the support. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Yeah.
That was a language that like I'm first generation college educated, grew up in the Southern US. It's like
Yeah.
sports were a cultural language and kind of a currency that was more easily understood
Hmm.
than like serious, weird instrumental music, right? And like I went to like the before I went to North Texas, I actually spent a year at the University of Southern Mississippi just because it
Okay.
was close by. and then I went to North Texas for a while, and then, William Patterson in New Jersey, and by the time I moved to New York City, I was about to turn 30.
Right.
And, like, that's when my career really kind of began in earnest, I would
Mm.
say. And so I had a super non-traditional path, and I just fear that there might not be as much space for that with the generations that come after me.
Yeah.
I mean, it was already the case to an extent for me. It's like I was naive that the Monk competition, the Herbie Hancock competition even existed. Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't competing in that, much less winning, but now it's sort of like there are these certain boxes that you tick and you kind of become a part of the in group, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
And so my hope is that, like, we'll continue to have spaces for people to take non-traditional paths
Mm.
and have careers. And
Yeah.
maybe social media will help with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it plays a part in it. I think you can certainly facilitate a career with social media, and I think that's a good thing. Despite all of its pitfalls and all of its the grip that it has on us. Like I've just the other day, I've turned my phone to grayscale because I heard that I'll spend less time on it because I just fucking hours just there thumbing through nothing. Like what? And then you catch like, what am I doing? Like put this shit down. So yeah, I mean, I'm making like a conscious effort just to get away from my phone. Like read more books, do more practice, put the fucking phone down. Um, but yeah, I think despite all of that, I mean, I found you through social media. I didn't find you because there was no link between us. I saw a couple of your reels. I'm like, damn, shit. Oh fuck, yeah, that's shit. Never thought about that. I'm like, let's get this guy on. Let's see if he's up for it. So I think that it's like it's a double edged sword. It can destroy your life if you let it, but it could also enrich it.
Most powerful things are, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Most powerful things do have good things and risks and trade-offs. The way I contextualize it for myself to try and make sense as a person for, like I was on AOL Instant Messenger in high school. It's
mm,
like maybe that's the earliest kind of proto social media kind of thing?
yeah,
But like I definitely am not native to social like somebody's 20 years old now, like they've never known a world without social media, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
So there are a lot of fully adult humans walking around who never existed in the pre-social media era. So
Mm,
the way that I try to make sense of it for myself is that it's arguably the largest paradigm shift in human communication since the invention of the printing press.
yeah,
So, like, I imagine it's probably gonna take longer than my lifetime for it to all settle out and for us to be able to kind of manage it in the healthiest and most constructive way consistently, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like people would lose their fucking minds when the printing press came out. It was like, well, how are we going to contain these ideas? I remember I think it was the Greeks would condemn writing. It's like, why are you writing stuff down? Commit it to memory. So I
Mhm.
think when we have these giant shifts in communication or things like writing and documenting, you're always going to get the generation ahead of it looking back and saying this isn't the way that we did it and I think this is going to be bad for you. And it's the same with books as well. When novels were coming out, people were like, she's always got her head in a book, like
That's
it
right.
is damaging. It's like, and now reading is seen as like an elite thing that you can do today.
Right. And I mean the same with film and even
Mm,
video games. I mean, like, my interactions with video games were it was seen as by the prior generation as a complete waste of time.
yeah,
And now we can see it not only as of actually a completely valid art form,
yeah,
as part of culture and the arts, really, in the
mm,
best cases, but something that even I couldn't have imagined as a 9-year-old playing Mike Tyson's Punch-Out
yeah,
is that it's a for real career. Like, there are professional gamers who do
yeah,
okay, you know?
yeah, yeah. It's
And so, you know,
it's
I try my best to not be too reactionary about the way because it's like, man, if we're fortunate enough to live long enough lives, like, we're gonna leave a very different world than the one we came into.
yeah,
And and how we deal with that, much like everything guitar related, is up to us, you know?
mm,
It's
yeah,
like, if you hear somebody who's playing great and you have feelings of inadequacy as a result, the way you deal with that shapes your outcome, you know?
Mm,
It's like, I feel like when I was very young, I would be threatened to hear a guitar player who had more together than I did.
mm,
It was almost like I remember being at North Texas and they had every week they had guitar departmental, jazz guitar departmental, and they'd
mm,
have three different guitar players do a little set of like 2 or 3 songs each, and every guitar student would go and listen. And I remember in my immaturity feeling this weird combination of, like, hoping somebody sounded good, but not too good.
mm,
Hoping that they didn't sound so good that they were threatening because so much of my own self-worth and sense of value was tied up in playing well, that I
yeah,
was actually, like, fearful that someone would threaten my image of myself as one of the better guitar players in the
mm,
program, you know?
yeah,
Which, like, that did not serve me well, you know? And it's like, obviously, with a little bit of maturity, you grow up and, like, you become a little more secure in yourself and you actually find it legitimately exciting and inspiring and thrilling when you hear somebody who's playing better than you know?
yeah, yeah,
And so it's really I think it's the same when we talk about these big kind of paradigm shifts in tech and culture. It's like, how how do I interact with this in the most constructive way for myself? In the
mm,
way where, like, it's not only healthiest for me, but it also enables me to put out the best energy to everyone else to kind of make everything around me better if I can, you know?
yeah, I
And, like,
yes,
those questions are coming up a lot for me lately because AI has entered the discussion in such a
yeah,
prominent way around the arts, you know? And I don't want to be so reactionary that I'm just like, "This is unequivocally bad," you know?
mm,
But I also don't wanna be naive to the fact that there are real consequences, there are real costs, there are real risks, and just the fact that, like, a lot of what's being talked about is probably overhyped because the people who are trying to monetize the technology benefit from there being as much enthusiasm around it as possible, you know? So, one thing as far as AI in the music space, something I've noticed this past year, for example, I had more session work where I was playing in a band, tracking together in real
mm,
time than I've had in maybe the last 5 years combined.
okay,
And my sense is that, like, there's a restlessness around the idea of certain things becoming too easy. So it's like, where is the value? How can we find the thing of value that computers can't just do all by
yeah,
themselves? And one of those things, I think, is people getting together in a space together where there's bidirectional listening. I'm listening to the bass player at the same time the bass player's listening to me, and we're both listening to the drummer at the same time as they're listening to us. Like, that all of a sudden feels very precious and very special again, you know?
yeah,
So it's obviously a developing story, but I'm trying to interact with that in a way that's not naive to the kind of the risks and the downsides, but also not just reflexively closed-minded
yeah,
to it.
yeah, yeah, I agree, like, I think it's gonna change how we interact and listen and even make music, and it's yeah, it's the printing press again, it's the novels that are being released in the early Victorian era, we're just gonna have to see how it plays out, and yeah, I think
And I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of staying power the work has. In other words, or what kind of staying power the fascination has. In other
mm,
words, it's like after I've 5 times, I'm like, I want a picture of Garfield the cat on a surfboard eating a banana, and it
yeah.
makes it, and it's like, "Oh, wow, that's cool." After I've done that a handful of times, like, is it still interesting, you know?
Yeah.
Does it does it actually will the net result actually be a powerful focusing effect
Mm,
where, like, only ideas that really are compelling will rise to the surface and everything else just kind of disappears
yeah,
into an amorphous, nebulous kind of primordial ooze of
yeah,
of
yeah,
of uninteresting stuff, you know?
yeah,
Like, it remains to be seen.
yeah. I mean, I we downloaded me and my wife, we downloaded Suno the other day, and I've got 100 little voice clips of me playing acoustic guitar and just humming little tunes and melodies, and I uploaded it and see what it could do. Now I've got this issue where I think I have two strengths when it comes to writing. I'm good at coming up with an initial idea with a melody and a chord progression, or I'm really good at developing something that's already there. And when I put it into to Suno and I hit record and it played me back a tune, like it finished the things that I wouldn't finish, if
Mhm.
that makes sense. Like it added the strings to it, it fine tuned the melody, and I was like, okay, well that's now if I deconstruct what that's done, I can take the bits out that I don't like, and I can add the bits in that I thought that might work, or that will work better than me not doing it at all.
Right. I mean, for me, the most interesting potential use cases of AI type technologies are practical, like automation related things. In other words, if I've got a Pro Tools session open and I've
Mm,
done like 6 guitar tracks and maybe I've done a couple of punches, like find all of the edit points and crossfade them for me in a way that
yeah,
makes sense musically, you know?
yeah,
Or like if I'm writing a string arrangement in Dorico, you
yeah,
know, it's like, okay, I here's my score. Create individual parts for these instruments that adhere to conventions that like a violin player would like to see on a printed page, you know,
yeah,
so that I don't have to do all of those kind of mundane tasks. Like
yeah.
if those were automated in an intelligent way, like I think that would actually really accelerate my output.
Mm,
What I am less interested in is something having ideas for me,
right, yeah.
you know, because that's that like to me that's the essence of the creative part of the work,
Mm,
and that I am just personally very protective of that.
yeah,
So yeah, it's like again, it's weird that like I haven't heard the like kind of the I guess the people who are promoting the technology focus on these kind of more mundane tasks that slow down creativity. Like
yeah.
they're kind of leaping straight to the technology is going to be creative for you.
Mm,
And to me that's so much less interesting actually than it's like this technology is going to be a force multiplier for your ability to generate creative output and get your ideas out or like you're saying finish ideas or things like that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was my first dip into it, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I definitely I don't expect it to generate fresh ideas that I find interesting because I'll have those. Like I said, I think I'm good at coming up with fresh and interesting ideas. It's just I'm shit at finishing them.
And I guess it also does at least bear mentioning that at least right now, it seems that there's the very real prospect of serious environmental costs if this technology were
Mm,
to become scaled to the point where it was really a part of everyday life for
yeah,
everyone.
yeah. Yeah,
So
I think I
there's
read something similar that ChatGPT used up the same amount of water that the Netherlands used up last year. Something ridiculous.
right, yeah. I mean, and that's like
Well,
I
that
guess
can't go on.
no, right. That's kind of the danger of any technology that's designed to be a essentially like a black box to
Mm,
the user. It's like it's it's sort of like if you think about like I'm not a huge meat eater. I'm not a vegetarian, but it's like I would probably eat even less meat if I had to look an animal in the eye and slaughter it
yeah,
myself,
yes,
as
I think most
opposed to
people
just
would.
like buying a styrofoam tray of ground meat.
Yeah, yeah, I think I think most people would. But anyway, listen, I'm gonna leave it there because it's getting on. I've taken up quite a lot of your time. I just want to thank you for your time. It's been really, really illuminating, and it's been a lovely chat.
Of course, thank you so much. I'm so glad you asked me to do it.
Oh, it's like I said, I've mentioned this on the last few episodes that I'm now just let Instagram do its thing, and it will generate people for me to follow or look at. And if there's an interesting reel, well, let's see what else they're doing. And again, I'm like it's harnessing social media for a benefit. And I
It's
think that
been an
like
experiment for me this year. I never was very active on social media, and I have a little less touring this year, so I'm like I was actually just put a new record out called Light Rivers, and my label, La Reserve, was like, "Do you think you could get your social numbers up?" And I'm like, I'll try." So I just started posting stuff, and somehow
yeah.
it worked.
Sorry, what
Yeah.
was your album called?
Called Light Rivers.
Light Rivers. And is that just released under your name?
It is Brad Allen Williams,
Right,
yes.
I'm going to check that out. Yeah, like the last, like I had a guy called, oh, guy, he's a kid, he's 16, Ronnie Elliott. Have you seen him?
I haven't.
Oh my God, man. He dropped into my feed. He's 16. I think he's in North Carolina. And he was just playing all these bebop changes. And I was just like, jaw hit the floor. And I was going through his mid socials and he's just like unbelievable player.
Yeah.
At 16, I'm like, you son of a bitch. It makes me
Yeah.
feel sick. But yeah, I had him on and like, I had a chat with his mum as well because his mum's like, he's only 16. I just want to make sure that this is all. I was like, oh, fine. If you want to be on too, you're more than welcome to both be on. Um, yeah, and Chapman as well. I found Chapman through social media reels. It's like the vast amount of talent that is just sitting like we're sitting in our bedrooms or our rooms or our studios, our living rooms, just throwing out these little ideas that people really latch onto.
I know we're wrapping it up, but on that point, I will say
Mm,
another earlier we were talking about the different role that music plays in culture and society. And I think part of that is it's really, really hard to sell the narrative that somebody is a extremely unique or special talent now
mm,
because it's in front of all of our faces that really and it's always been true. There's so much talent everywhere. If you tour the Stax Museum in Memphis, there's a little neighborhood map of where everyone lived. It's like Aretha
mm,
Franklin lived here. Isaac Hayes lived a couple blocks away,
yeah,
like the Steve Cropper and Duck Dunn lived across the street from each other. It's like everyone was just kids from the neighborhood and they
yeah.
created that music that changed the world. So talent is everywhere.
It's amazing. Like I think visiting like Nashville and Memphis is it's got to be on my is on my list. It's on my list of things to do. Um, yeah, it's just finding the time to do it with life and kids and stuff.
Nashville is where all the business is
Mm.
now, and Memphis is where all the heart is.
Right.
I'm
Okay.
from
I'll.
Memphis, so I'm biased, but
Yeah.
it's
Of
like
course.
it's an extremely soulful place with a ton of heart.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got this odd obsession to do like a little tour around the southern United States, around Mississippi, Alabama. I've just kind of there's something about it that I'm just drawn to it, and I don't know why. My wife's from New York, and I told her this. And she said, "Why? Why would you want to go down there?" I was like, "Well, I don't know. There's just this. I don't know.
I know why,
There's a
you know?
thing about it that I just find endearing.
I
Southern
mean, there's you gotta
hospitality.
hit the triangle, right? The road that all the session musicians traveled, Memphis, Nashville, and Muscle Shoals. It's
Mm,
essentially like an equilateral triangle,
yeah,
where all that great music was made and three culturally very different places actually. Like Memphis is technically in Tennessee, but I always say that Memphis is the capital of the Mississippi Delta. It has so
yeah,
much more in common culturally
yeah.
with North Mississippi than it does with like the mountains of Tennessee.
Okay, yeah. But I will make a trip out there soon. But
Yeah.
anyway, thank you again for your time. I hope you have a lovely 2026. Thank you for your
Thank
time,
you.
and I will stay in touch, and
You too.
we'll speak soon.
Please do. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
See ya.